I remember my first memory, which seems relevant, is lying in a pram and looking up at the ceiling to ask myself the question, what am I doing here? So I found that was a beginning. And then as we grow up, we all go through different experiences, trying to make sense of the chaotic world outside. So I remember going to Hampstead in London and with my mother and saying, wow, I'd really like to live here. Can we live here? As we grow up, I remember working in an office, looking at the clock on the wall and wondering what life's all about. How can I discover the true knowledge? And so I found myself seeking. I found myself leaving the government office and setting off, going around Europe on a motorcycle. And that was a lovely adventure. And then before doing that, I had arranged to get a place at Art College, Hornsey College of Art in London. So how things turned out to be very beneficial, because when I came back to London after my trip around Europe on a motorcycle, I started Art College. And there I met John Watkinson, a friend who happened to be at the same school as I in London. And he told me about these yoga meetings happening every Monday evening in London at Caxton Hall, where Šrí Mátadží Nirmala Devi would come to give a public program to share her knowledge of Sahaja Yoga. So good fortune had it where he invited me to come to a program back in 1979. And we went to the program and it became a very momentous time in my life. We were able to offer a flower, to go and see Šrí Mátadží in person, to offer her flower, which I didn't understand the significance of until later. So I found myself before Šrí Mátadží, and Šrí Mátadží was giving me a great big smile, very welcoming, and she was asking what's wrong. Being very English, I didn't say anything. And then she closed her eyes for ages to think, and then to open her eyes and say, I love my mother. Put your hand on your heart and simply say, I love my mother. So it was a way of clearing any negativity, any bada in the heart, I guess. So my second program with Šrí Mátadží, where she asked, how am I? And so it was a bit of a wake-up call to clarify directions in life and to realise what had been working out through me spontaneously, and how I felt myself growing inside, becoming more sensitive to what was happening inside. So I came to London, to a public programme in London when I finished Art College, with a busy mind, thinking, oh, Šrí Mátadží, what do you want me to do? What work shall I do? After a situation happened after the programme again where we could give a flower to Šrí Mátadží, so I ended up going before her to give a photograph and a flower, and then being English, I didn't say anything at all. And as she just looked at me to know exactly what was going on to my head, which was full of scrambled egg of different possibilities and directions to follow up with a thinking mind, and Mother said, just enjoy yourself. You're here to enjoy yourself. So that has become a motto of my life ever since. So that was a great discovery of clarifying my direction in life, in which way to go after busy doing a pirouette to go in 101 different directions. So it was a great direction to follow. And so it's a wonderful time to discover Sahaja Yoga, to discover how we are like a drop in her ocean, where we become tuned in to a whole new sensitivity called vibratory awareness. And with that, the sensitivity we can grow. It gives us the discrimination where we can choose what's right and what's wrong, and what's good for our spiritual well-being and growth, so we can ascend into a new awareness, so we become more identified with that quality of the spirit. So I found myself becoming active with public programs, going to live in Hampstead, and Šrí Mátadží would give public programs every week, very often, well, not quite at that time. We would see her every week, which was a great blessing. The very early Sahaja Yogis, like the first, to make reference to the first hippies who came to Sahaja Yoga, said, oh, that was nothing, seeing Mother every week. We would see her every day. So it just highlights how much attention Šrí Mátadží gave us, how much attention Šrí Mátadží put on us to help our spiritual growth. So it was a time to learn from the experience of older Sahaja Yogis, in particular Patrick Anslow, who was able to share amusing stories of being in the company of Šrí Mátadží, discovering Sahaja Yoga from a rather drugs-orientated background. But he playfully would recite two memories where he was in the presence of Šrí Mátadží. They were all together, and Mother had been very busily clearing them out. And then they would go down the pub afterwards to go and vibrate their beer. And then afterwards, Šrí Mátadží would come back and ask, where have you been? Why are your vibrations so bad? And that was one experience. Another tale I remember him saying was how they went out to a graveyard and to take the vibrations. And again, they returned to Šrí Mátadží to feel where Šrí Mátadží asked her, where have you been? And Mother was busy clearing them out again. So moving forward, we were active with the growth of Sahaja Yoga. Šrí Mátadží would give programs very often in London. She gave 7 programs at the Royal Albert Hall, where many people came to receive their self-realization. Very few people came back to establish their realization, just 1 or 2 at each program. So it highlights the amount of work Šrí Mátadží was, how much she was trying, how much she focused her attention on London, which represented the foundation of the New Jerusalem, which as prophesied by William Blakea, the great seer who lived in London 200 years ago. He was an artist and poet, and he predicted this time of where people would be seeking the truth and where one candle will enlighten another candle. So effectively, he was saying how we would have public programs where Sahaja Yogis had the ability to raise the kundalini of seekers, of people who wanted to receive their self-realization. So Šrí Mátadží would help us become more sensitive to vibrations, to work on new people, asking what we felt when we worked on people. So she was very busy with her attention on everyone within the program and helping the Sahaja Yogis become active to share her vibrations, to work on the kundalini of new people so that they could have a deeper and stronger experience, and so they could discover the joy of Sahaja Yoga. So it was a very fortunate time because we had the opportunity to photograph Šrí Mátadží. So I found myself with a camera and being very fortunate to to take photographs of Šrí Mátadží, which became more of an activity as time went on. So it was a time when there were not many people coming forward to photograph Šrí Mátadží. So in Rahuri in 1984, I found myself with a camera coming before Šrí Mátadží to photograph her, and she was full of joy and smiles. And she took the form of Sri Lakshmi, Sri Mahalakshmi. And so from that time I found myself taking more photographs of Šrí Mátadží, and some of them became like miracle photographs. And so since which time it's nice to share them online. And so we had on India tour, which was an amazing time to grow, because people would come from all over the world and we would be together on the buses. So it was very much an international event, where it was a time to make friends with other Sahaja Yogis, and it was a great time to grow and listen to lots of nice classical music and to discover the culture of India, to begin to discover the culture and the depth of the culture of India was a great blessing, being the land of the Kundalini. So we would travel around India, around Maharáštře, which represents the 3.5 coils of the Kundalini, to go to to one place in particular, which is called a Sapta Shringi, and it represents one part of the coil, and it's a Swayambhu, where a natural altar of Šrí Mátadží manifests through the rock on the top of the mountain, and it's a place where Šrí Mátadží predicted the advent of the goddess, of the Adi Shakti, the feminine aspect of the divine. And at this location there's a beautiful sculpture, a natural sculpture called a Swayambhu of the goddess with many hands, many arms, dancing as the image of Sri Durga. And so one time on the tour, as we went to these different locations, Šrí Mátadží asked us to walk up to the top of the hill from the bottom. So that was an amazing adventure. And then we arrived right to the top and to take vibrations. And then afterwards we returned back down to the camp where Šrí Mátadží cooked us a meal. And in the meal she put many chilies in the meal, so it was very hot. It was like a curry, which was very hot. And because Šrí Mátadží had cooked the meal, we felt obliged to eat the meal and to eat all the chilies. And then afterwards, when Mother heard this, she laughed and said, "Oh, we should have taken the chilies out." So it was quite an amusing situation. But the great significance and beauty of that situation is that how we had gone up to the top of the mountain to see this Swayambhu of Šrí Mátadží, which appeared from the Mother Earth thousands of years ago, and then a place where Sri Mátadží predicted the advent of Šrí Mátadží. And then we had returned from the mountain to eat a meal which had been cooked by the same person, Sri Adi Shakti, Mataji Nirmala Devi. So it's such a blessing and such a huge discovery of the infinite nature of the goddess. So on one occasion during the procession, I was busy taking photographs of Šrí Mátadží, and then I was sort of looking behind the camera at Mother arriving on the bullock cart, and then I saw her waving at me like this, and I thought, oh gosh, is she waving at me? And so she waved again, and so I went forward to her for her to speak to me. And then she said, oh, come and sit next to her on the bullock cart and take photographs of the procession from her viewpoint, to see all the people dancing, all the brothers and sisters dancing away. And then so I was taking photographs of the procession, and then she said, oh, you see that tree ahead? Go climb that tree and go and take some photographs from the top of the tree, so you have another angle to view the procession. So it felt like Sri Hanuman gave me a big push to go up to the top of the tree to take photographs. So that was very playful. So returning to London, we'd have a regular program in Hampstead every week, and where Šrí Mátadží would come in person, and she would speak about Hampstead as the place, as the foundation of the New Jerusalem. It was as prophesied by William Blake, and it's a place that actually is the heart of London. So the heart is where the spirit resides. So there's a hall called the Friends Meeting House where we'd have these programs, and it's right on top of the hill in Hampstead, and Hampstead represents the northern heights of London, and it's a parody with Scotland, where Sri Shiva is said to reside, and Šrí Mátadží once spoke how that was a perfect place to have an ashram of Sahaja Yoga in England, because Sri Shiva would be sitting there facing south, looking across the rest of England, which is like the land of a spirit. So Hampstead's opposite the Friends Meeting House, there's a fountain, there's a spring of natural water that rises from the Mother Earth right to the top of the hill at this particular location. And in this location, it was where the first water supply became the first drinking water supply for London. And from there, there's a river which flows called the River Fleet. And it comes down into a place in London called Fleet Street, which has since become the centre of newspaper media. So it's an interesting connection. So there's many lakes on the Heath. It represents the countryside of London. And if ever you come to London, you must come to visit Hampstead Heath, because you find you clear out very quickly, because Hampstead represents the heart of London, and the heart is where the spirit resides. And London is the heart, Hampstead is the heart of London. So London is the heart of England, and England is the heart of the world. And the world is the heart of the universe, is something that was referred to by Šrí Mátadží. So it's a very special place, and it represents where the thrill of the heart, the attraction of Hampstead, is like a village where people come from all over London on Sundays to enjoy, and unconsciously they're maybe clearing out and raising their attention and letting their heart open, which is the big issue of London, because everyone's very much on the mental level. And being the quality of the heart, there's lots of negativity attacking an open heart. So it's always a relief to come to Italy to enjoy an open heart. So it reminds me of another time when we chartered an aeroplane back in 1985 in London to travel with Šrí Mátadží on this aeroplane full of Sahaja Yogis. And it was a time when she spoke how she took the spirit to the land of the soul. So the aeroplane flew from London to Rome and the 7 hills of Rome, which represent the 7 chakras of Rome. And Italy is the land of the soul. So since which time Šrí Mátadží has come to live in the land of the soul to establish the growth of Sahaja Yoga in Europe. And then as time went on, she spent more time in the land of the Kundalini, India, to establish Sahaja Yoga protocol in India.